Satisfy is known to be the greatest virtual reality game in the entire world. With over 2 billion unique players throughout the world, a fantasy world so wide and vast in content that is widely considered as another world. In this world, many lands are still unexplored. Northern End Cave is a place that is one of them. The deepest area in the entire cave. A location that is stacked by all gears and items, sitting patiently until a user comes to discover its wealth. Prior to that, a player with an ID name Grid was able to find Earl Asher's S-rank quest item, a legendary craftsman rare book. But it takes a lot of time until he finishes the mission and is able to find that book. So he tried to appraise it, thinking he could earn some money if he could sell it. When he tried to appraise the book, it turns out to be a legendary item, Pagma's rare book. This book contains the secrets of Pagma, a legendary blacksmith who transcends human boundaries. If he used that book, he would become Pagma's successor. That made him so happy, because if he used that book, he could get the strongest class. He is thinking if he should give it to Earl Asher and finish the mission, but it can be also sold easily, as a legendary class can be sold for 100 million won or more. Because of the student loans and gaming fees, Grid had to work in manual labor. Gaming was the only thing that he was confident in. Since he was so invested in playing games, even his friends abandoned him for a while. Even his family considered him as a waste of space in their house. But that is all over now, since he can say goodbye to his loser lifestyle by selling the book. He thinks that he struck gold, so he hurriedly logs out from the game to sell that item. But he was shocked when a notification told him that he could not log out for a moment. The S-rank quest of Earl Asher turned into an SS rank entitled Earl Asher's Anger. Earl Asher told him that he became a rotten bastard that is blinded by greed. The Earl got angry because he noticed that Grid wanted to steal the item of the quest, and the Earl will attempt to slay Grid to take back the item. When Earl Asher told Grid that he betrayed them despite the contract, Grid angrily told Earl Asher that it was difficult for him to have that item in his hand to be given away for a quest. While counting the months he spent to finish the mission, one man of Earl Asher suddenly appears behind his back and aims to slash him. Grid said that he couldn't die just like that, and that no matter what he would beat this quest. His target is to trip down this man first using a stun of the Guardian Shield. But the stun was blocked and his HP started to go down. He could only cry because he knew that the quest was not meant for him to begin with. He just wants for everyone to go and just die. He knew that his luck was rotten to begin with. He is starting to question what will happen to the book if he dies there. He was cornered by the man of Earl Asher. He knows that if that book disappears when he dies, there is nothing will be left. So with no other choice, he opened the book and told Earl Asher that it was too late for them to stop him. The class change begins, and he becomes Pagma's descendant. He thinks that maybe that legendary class could help him beat the quest. But when the change was completed, his stats and levels were reset, and he became a level 1, which made the men of Earl Asher be able to kill him instantly. The main developer said that the quest that Grid finished was supposed to be a quest in the next 2 years, but Grid was able to finish it in advance, and the minimum level should be level 350. But Grid was a level 70 character. This means that he needs to receive a level penalty. With the reset level, his level becomes -1, which means when he comes back to level 1 he has above 20 stat points compared to others, which means Grid's character will become broken later on. The main developer looked for Grid to see what he looks like, but when he looked at him, he saw that there was nothing special about him. But honestly, he thinks that there is some advantage for Grid. But Grid, on the other hand, thinks about things that he was good at. Because his luck is at the bottom in terms of game, he only has a small amount of money in his hand from his hard work. But Grid doesn't want to surrender. He wants to bet that money and play the game one more time. The main developer smiled looking at him because this kid didn't know when to stop. When he played the game, he really was level -1 and with no equipment at all. On his first login after that reset, he met Duran, a named NPC and a knight that was so strong, and his first mission is to fight a cult to save a daughter of a nobility. Since he has no level, and with just one hit, he will die. He only could cheer on Duran on the sideline while he is fighting the cult member. During that mission, he met a player named Yura. She is the world's #1 black magic player, and 5th on the unified ranking. She is a player in South Korea, a global sensation, who with her physical beauty and talented ability, she frequently appeared on the TV screen. Yura cast a spell on Duran that can drain the blood and make the player meet his end. Grid knows that if this NPC dies, he will also be going to die. But the NPC didn't die because he was protected by a special ring item that had protected their family for 100 years. It can protect him from a curse and also has a special recovery advantage. Because of that, Yura cast his ultimate spell using all of her mana in maximum output. Grid and the NPC know that it will be over if they are hit by that. But when that skill hit Grid, he was even left unscathed, and the skill had no effect on him. Yura was confused about why there was some strong player that he didn't know of. He is asking who the hell is this guy. But the reason why Grid survives is because of the perk. A legend doesn't die easily. One of the advantages of Pagma's successor is that when his HP is low, he becomes invulnerable to all attacks in 5 seconds. That made Grid happy that he was alive. To gain momentum, Duran jumps on Grid's back to attack Yura, because this NPC believes that the victor always steps faster. With the remaining mana of Yura, he cast a crystal shield to defend himself. But she was thinking of a way to defeat Grid with her low mana. But he was confused as to why Grid suddenly went missing. He asks why he left and why he did not make a move even though he was strong. But actually, Grid died and his level became level -3. He lost 2 levels in the process, and since he died 2 times within 24 hours, he cannot log into the game for 12 hours. He died when Duran, the named NPC, jumped on his back to gain momentum and attack Yura. Since he only has 1 health percentage and when Duran jumps, it creates a -1 damage, which makes Grid die as he lost all of his HP. Because of that, he blamed Duran for his death. But also the one that he blamed the most is Yura. As the greatest loser in the neighborhood, he puts in the forum all the topics that could degrade the image of Yura. Then the next day, there is the news in the world of Satisfy that last night, a temple of Yeton suddenly collapsed, and that there is a witness that some guy was able to receive the ultimate spell of Yura, and that guy didn't even get a single scratch from that spell. The announcer asked the witness if he was able to see the face of the user, but he said that he died when the boulder collapsed while looking at Yura. So the users of Satisfy were curious of the identity of that man. Grid was dumbfounded, asking if he really become famous. Grid tries to do a menial task while playing to level up. This is where he meets Khan, an alcoholic blacksmith whose store is on the verge of collapsing. And there were mercenaries sent by a merchant who wanted to buy the business of Khan. Since he doesn't want to be part of this mess, Grid tried to leave the area, but there is a quest that pops up which orders him to destroy the contract between Khan and the merchant. If he finishes the mission, he can gain a maximum affinity with Khan and have a possible next quest from Khan. So he had no choice but to fight down on these mercenaries. And he used the arrow that he was able to make in his past mission. He stabs this mercenaries using the arrow and attacks sneakily at them. Since the enemy has a number advantage, and also their levels are much higher than Grid, at the end, he was cornered. But Grid doesn't want to die again and receive a penalty. He saw that there was an armor that was stored on the 2nd floor, so he still struggled and fight back. He stabs the arrow on the mercenary and runs towards the 2nd floor. He was able to wear the armor that was stored on the upper floor. As a Pagma's successor, he can pass through any restrictions in any gear which could make him overgeared as a character. With just 1 slash, he was able to beat down all of these mercenaries in an instant. Khan helps Grid to become a good blacksmith. He trained him how to craft a weapon. While he keeps using his skills, his proficiency continues to improve. His precision and efficiency become better. His stats on persistency, dexterity, and stamina also increased, which in the end helped him to create. Through continuous practice, he was able to create a sword, but at the end, it was just a normal grade sword. Which is why he shouted that the operators of this game are so trashy. He shouted that if they manipulated the probabilities of creating an item, he will report them. A week later, he still continues to craft a sword. He became delusional and lost his rationality. He thinks that it is impossible to create a greater grade sword because all of the swords that he made were all normal ratings. But Grid still gives his all because he knows that he is screwed anyway. He is on his last sword that he could make. He believes that there is no way that the grade of that sword would be epic. So he does the final touch so he can rest. But the sword suddenly brightened up. Grid cannot understand what is going on since he already given up on creating epic item. A lightning struck the smithy of Khan, but the sword absorbed that electricity from the lightning. The sword turns out to be a legendary rank sword, which is higher than the epic rank that Grid wants to achieve. Because of Grid was able to produce that item, all of his stats increased by 25. Because of what he saw, Khan couldn't believe it and his mouth started to bubble up and he lose consciousness because of shock. Grid tried to sell it to a nobility family of STEM. The administrator told him that the STEM family will buy it for 220,000 gold and they would make it as an heirloom of the STEM family. He was crying because of happiness, because if he exchanged that for money, it would be 264 million won. He can now buy branded clothes and pay all of his debt. He believes that his hard work is now paying off. At a high-end restaurant, Grid brought his sister there to treat him to a meal. However, his sister doesn't want to eat in that place because the price of the food is so high. Grid insisted because he said that he earned a lot of money yesterday. That is also the time when Yura goes to that restaurant for an interview. He saw Grid, the guy. He had a fight on Yaten Church. She did not expect him to meet in real life. She told the interviewer that she had plans that she needed to attend to, so she asked to excuse herself. Yura could not find Grid's true identity despite all of her investigations. She thinks that Grid lives in that area since he meets him there. Grid was the only person who gave her a 5th in world rankings a complete sense of defeat. Since she finally has a grasp on him, she calls a personnel to investigate Grid by sending their location. His sister was so happy eating the food, and she said that it was delicious. Grid told her to take her time while eating. Suddenly, someone called on his phone. It was an unknown number. He was asking if it was about that debt, but he already paid all of his debt back. It was the voice of a girl asking if this was the number of Shin Youngwoo, Grid's full name. Hearing that made Grid shock. It was the voice of Ahaying, his first love. He can still recognize the voice of Ahaying. That is how special Ahaying is to Grid. He asks Ahaying the reason why did he call. Ahaying replied, "You remembered my voice. You are still delicate Youngwoo. It is nothing much. I was just going through the graduation album and saw you. Do you want to get a beer later in the evening if you are free?" He told his sister to eat faster or they will just pack their food. His sister was confused because of his change of behavior. On Grid's mind, what is going on? Did Ahaying really contact me? I hesitated to confess because I had nothing that I had stood out. But now it is different. I have money now. Damn, Grid is so simp. At night in the restaurant, they meet and Ahaying said, "Youngwoo, you look really good now. Has it been 2 years since we last met?" Grid was blushing when he replied yes. In his mind, she is still so pretty and lovely. I think my heart will burst by just being with her. How long have I waited for this moment? Let's surely express my emotions to her this time. Ahaying told Grid that he really changed. Grid replied, "Well, I got a good job. I have cleared all of my debts too." But Grid spent $1,000 on his looks, and he is thinking on things he could do on how he can confess, because he knows that Ahaying will be dumbfounded if he confesses suddenly. Ahaying told him, "I see. You are always a hardworking person. I knew things would turn out well for you, and I like that part of you." Hearing that, Grid is starting to blush and become delusional. In his mind, she liked it? Does that mean that she had feelings for me? I mean, it never asked, so it could be confusing for us. Just once. If there is a time to be brave, it is now. Just express your feelings genuinely. So Grid speaks his feelings with all of his heart. He said, "I like you, Ahaying. I always did for a long time." Grid added, "That felt nice. I have always wanted to say this. I have no dating experience, so it came out unrefined. I am so sorry." Ahaying laughed and said, "Why are you making a serious face? But it's so you, and that makes me happy. You are not joking, right? Could you give me some time to think? Ahaying excused herself and told Grid, I should get my head straight today then. I will go and fix my makeup. After Ahaying left, Grid started to relax, thinking that if it could go better, they could go on a date. Grid wants to go to the bathroom too, since he cannot ruin the vibe that he already saved. So he asks the waiter the directions towards the bathroom. While walking towards the bathroom, thinking about how he can impress his crush, Grid heard the voice of Ahaying while talking on the phone. She said, it was so embarrassing. It is exactly like what the people at the reunion said. He is not even a high schooler now, yet he still doesn't know how to dress himself except to wear what is actually on display. I don't know where he got that money, but he was pretending though. She added, and you know what is worst? He confessed to me. Just get the bet money ready. I will bring him over to the next reunion. I have never seen such a dumb virgin in my whole life. How ridiculous, I can't wait till the reunion. Hearing that made Grid leave the place. Grid thought that he already changed from his past with no life or money. It doesn't matter if he earns money or wears expensive clothes. He thinks that he is just like a well-packed cigarette that is easy to throw out. He burst into tears while thinking that he was a worthless human because of what this beach did. Poor man. After that, he enters the game, but he seems to look down because he only works to pay the debt and he thinks his life is pointless. His mood changes when one of the famous guilds, the Tzedakah Guild, invited him to be part of their group, saying that they needed him. The guild offers Grid the best working environment for crafting weaponry. Jashuka, the guildmaster, also assured that Grid will gain fame that will outvalue any earnings he is now. Grid said that he will stay in Khan's smithy, which the guild agreed that they move into that place, which made Grid agree to join their guild. All of the guild members swarmed Grid and asked him to make equipment, but Grid could not make that easily and told them to find materials first. He also chose the one that he would give an item first and the one that is last. Grid also has an appraisal skill for all of the items, which is why he tried to use his skill to find the hidden features of their item. The owner of the axe named Vander was so happy that there was a hidden feature in his axe that was found, and it had a new skill that was discovered. So Grid, who looks like money, said that he will use appraisal on their items at a discounted price since they are part of the guild. The fee is 30 gold, and if some hidden features are found, he will ask for 300 gold instead. That is $1,000 money for just looking. Grid was also able to create another legendary sword for their guild members. Jashuka looks at Grid, because a legendary item can only be attainable in raids, and no player can create a legendary item. So Jashuka asks if Grid is a legendary class blacksmith, which Grid told him a yes. Hearing that, Jashuka happily jumps at Grid and puts her 2 bouncy buns on Grid's face. She said that Grid is the best. But even the guild member cannot escape the greed of Grid. Like his name says, he sells that item for 3 million gold, which would Grid give him 2.5 million gold later on as a discount. After that, he gave them the savings account to his parents. He said that they should pay off their family debts, and the remaining money would be used to settle the store that they had. His mother cried, and his father was also holding his tears. His father told him that it was the parents' duty to look after for their family. But Grid knows what his parents sacrificed and all the things they did for him and his sister all those years. Even Grid cried and said, "We have to endure everything by relying on and raising up each other. That is what a family does." After that, he showed off his luxury car that he bought to his mother. It was a car that is a dream of the younger generation that cost 800 million won. His mother beat him up because he doesn't think what he is buying, but Grid felt nice from that because it was a beating with energy and happiness. The day after that, after the school hours, many young men are waiting for the arrival of both Shinsidi, the sister of Grid, and Park Urim, Sihee's friend. Many guys are waving at them. Some said that both these girls are not only known for their beauty, because they are also smart, and belong to the top 5 nationwide with the highest grades. Urim asks Sihee, when will she introduce her older brother, whom she's so eager to hide from? Sihee told her that she would not introduce her brother, especially on her Grid arrived at their school and called Sihi. Sihi starts to question about the appearance of his appa on the school. Seeing his brother, Yuram asks, "Is he really your brother? He is so different from you. Are you adopted or something?" Sihi replied, "What do you mean adopted? He really is my older brother." Grid approaches Sihi and her friend. He said, "Are you Sihi's friend? Nice to meet you." Yuram replied, "You, ugly. Go away. I don't want your ugliness spread to me." Grid told his sister to go in the car and talk about the details on their way. Seeing the luxury car, her friend suddenly changed her mood and she said, "What are you doing, handsome appa? Let's go already." Sihi told him that if he was in a such hurry, she could go and walk. Sihi asks his brother, "What is the occasion? Is there something going on?" Grid replied, "It is just I need your help making me look good because tomorrow is my reunion." On the day of the reunion, Grid was riding in his luxury car, and he said, "They are hosting this far away from the city. Are they trying to mess with me? Well, it doesn't matter. This time I received a reliable clothing help, and I am here with my beloved B13 luxury car." On the road there was a woman doing a thumbs up sign, maybe to go for a hitchhiking. So Grid was staring to the woman and asks himself, "What is this? Did the car break down? I'm not in a situation to help someone else right now, but I should still help a person with such a great body. No, I mean a person who is in need of help." So Grid asks the woman, "Can I help you with anything?" He looks at the car and starting to ask his mind, "Is that the S model? That model is 4 times more expensive than my car B13. That is a model famous for only being affordable to millionaires. How can such a young woman own one?" This beautiful lady asks Grid, "Could you give me a ride?" Grid was dumbfounded at first seeing the face of the beautiful lady. But he was sweating and wanted to scream in his mind when he realized that the lady was Yura in flesh, the only female user in the top 10 of the unified rankings of Satisfy. Third on the list of the 100 most influential people in the world, the queen of commercial film, and the one that is considered as the most beautiful woman in the world. He is still silent, looking at the beautiful face of Yura. Many thoughts are running through his mind. He thinks, "She is standing in front of me right now? For real? No way. There can't be such a coincidence. Is it because of the negative comments? Is she here to get revenge for what I wrote about her after she ruined the quest?" Because Grid didn't say a word, Yura decided to go in the car and she said, "Then I will consider that as a yes and let myself in." In Grid's mind, does she not recognize me? I mean, I do look different. After that, Yura smiled and looked at Grid. She said, "It is an honor to meet you in person, Grid." Grid was sweating in fear because he knew that he was so faked up. He said to Yura, "You have got the wrong person. Am I going to die today?" Yura told him to drive to the place where he was headed to. At the reunion, there is this guy named Lee Junho who gets angry. He shouts, "Shin Youngwa, this bastard. Why is he so late? Hey, Kim Ahaying, are you sure Youngwa's coming?" Ahaying replied, "I'm not sure." "Well, it is because you got a place so far just to mess with him. Are you anxious because there is no one you can bully here? You can sit still. Don't worry. His first love did a very good job of convincing him. So how will he not come?" She added, "There is nothing to be butthurt about. All the guys here, they are all waiting for Youngwa like you. There is no other person to bully as fun as him." Ahaying told him, "You are still jobless at this age, and you just got fired from the convenience store you are working with because of your temper. You must need to bully him to feel better yourself." Although he was annoyed by what Ahaying said, Junho knew that it was all true, and he only believes that the life that is more pathetic than his is the life of Shin Youngwa. One of their classmates looked out of the window, and he was shocked because they saw that someone in their batch had a B13 car. Others said that the car is a limited edition worth over 800 million won. Hearing that made Junho be annoyed more. He said, "What is it, huh? A luxury car? I guess someone is living an easy life because of their parents." Ahaying replied, "I know you are jealous. Whoever that is will be a big catch to seduce." One of the guys said, "The door is opening. But why is there two persons?" But what shocked them more was that Shin Youngwoo was the one who get out of the car. They cannot believe that Grid was the one who owned that car. And what added to their shock is the lady with him. It was Yura, who is the Satisfy goddess. These two could not believe what they saw. In their mind, they are asking if Youngwoo really succeeded. Someone shouted and asked, "Wasn't Youngwoo jobless? How did he succeed so much?" Another one shouted, "Wow, look at how beautiful Yura is. It made the girls here look like a bunch of squid and trash. Look, she is even so close with Youngwoo." A limousine suddenly appeared, and Yura said, "That is my secretary. Thanks for the ride. Don't take the conversation in the car lightly, Grid." Then Yura suddenly jumps on Grid like they are kissing. Everyone who was watching could not believe about it. The men were so jealous because of the famous Yura and Shin Youngwoo, who was once being bullied kiss. Grid was blushing and sweating as Yura's face is near him. Actually, Yura just leaned on Grid at an angle that no one could see, and she whispered, "There is enough attention. So this much is one debt repaid." Then Yura leaves the area. These two could not believe what they saw. They cannot accept that the one is in their front is the loser, Shin Youngwoo, that they know. Now, they realize that Youngwoo Grid is now living in a different world. After that, more people swarmed at Grid. They asked him if he would become a ranker because he had become rich. Some men asked if he is dating with Yura. Others wanted to get closer to him and invited him to hang out. Grid approached Lee Junho and he said, "Hey Lee Junho, what are you up to nowadays? Do you still have that bad habit of fighting? You are old enough now. You should grow up." Because of that, Junho got annoyed and grabbed the collar of Grid. He shouted, "You bastard. I don't know what scheme you are up to, but don't get so full of yourself. I will punch you to death if I must." Grid just laughs and glares at him. He says, "There is no use in getting angry at just this. How does it feel, being crushed under the foot of the person you always looked down upon?" Seeing the eye of Grid, Junho remembers that glare that he saw before. It was the glare of the player in Satisfy with the mask of a monster. It was when Grid was on a mission and met this guy who gave trauma to Junho. Because of fear, Junho falls off. Grid then speaks to all of them. "I like that expression. I'd like to see more of that. But I am too disgusted to all of you if I stay here longer. You guys tore down my self-esteem and messed with me all the time. But now, you guys are so desperate to be nice to me. You are all leeches that have no shame." Before leaving, Grid said to them, "Learn your place. Instead of indulging in your minuscule sense of superiority, I am leaving you losers." While walking towards his car, Hyung hurriedly ran to catch up on Grid. She said, "Are you leaving already? We didn't finish our conversation last time." She seemed to release her seductive aura and said, "I like you too, Youngwoo. I can soothe the hurt they inflicted on you. I can promise that." Before that reunion, Youngwoo said to Yura, "You want to repay the debt because I saved you from Yaten Church? I think there is a misunderstanding here, and I did not help you in quest. You don't owe me anything." But Yura told him after their battle, she became the Eat servant of the Yaten Church, so she can't go that lightly. Grid has nothing to say because this girl only thinks what she wants to, and he is not strong. It is just that it is a part of his skill to be invulnerable for 5 seconds. Yura also knows that Grid joined the Sadaka Guild and was able to defeat one of the servants of Yaten. So, she knows that there will be a conflict between them later on. But she said that she would never kill him in the game, and instead, she would just beat him up until Grid cannot fight anymore. Yura said to Grid, "This is the debt that I will pay you because of the game. I heard that you have been humiliated quite often in the reunion you are headed to right now. I will act as your lover. You will gain the envy of everyone. Think of it as a promise to repay my debts." That is when Grid knows how scary of a woman Yura is. And because of that, Grid smiled and told Hyung, "Thank you for the answer, but I don't believe in your lies anymore. And goodbye." This is how the MC turns from simp to Sigma.